We'll start with the short breathing exercise. Quieting your mind by watching your breath mindfully. So we can think, unless we start working with our mind, just by trying to change external conditions, we can never find lasting satisfaction, peace, and happiness. The only way to find true lasting peace, satisfaction, happiness can be found only through our own mind, not from external factors or conditions. Therefore, it is crucial and important to work with our mind. By reducing, overcoming all the harmful negative minds or emotions. And by generating, cultivating helpful, positive emotions in the mind. And in order to overcome all those negative, harmful emotions permanently and completely from the very root of it, we need the source of wisdom, realizing the emptiness. And in order to develop the special insight, the penetrating wisdom, we need to develop Shamatha or karma abiding, and improve our concentrations, focus, and attentions. And to do that, we need to practice, meditate on that. And for that, we need to study, learn more about the technique of the meditations, how to develop Shamatha or karma abiding. And that's why we have come together here to study and learn together on that subject by Lama Tsongkhapa in his middle Lam-Rim. And may our act of coming together here, studying together, become cause and conditions to achieve the Buddhahood as soon as possible, and to be greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient being. Okay. I prostrate the Arya people gems, thus did I hear one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on the mass of Balchat mountain in Rajgir together with the great community of monks and the great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan observed in the concentration on categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wish to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Sharitadiputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this correctly and repeatedly, beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness form, emptiness not other than form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factor, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not division, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factor, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no order, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, originating, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattva rely on dwelling the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear, having completely passed beyond error, they reach the point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurprisable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurprised mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that totally pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth since it's not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared: Tada Om Kade Kade Parakade Parasam Kade Bodhi Sofa. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from the concentration and commanded the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, well Well said, son of the lineage. Is like that. It is like that one should practice and perform perfection of wisdom, just as you indicated. Even the Tathagata rejoiced that Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the venerable Sharitadit Putra, the Bodhisattva Master to Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding the entirety, along the world of gods, human, asura, Gandharvas, Obajo, and highly blessed, as spoken by the Bhagavan. Sashi Bege Chonshin Medo Tarira Lenshi Yinde Yembande Sange Shindo Mite Uwai Dokun Namada Shinla I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Jodan Zoge Zonam, Changju Pando Danega, Lagi Sheshe Gibe Zonam, Lola Pinje Sangye Duba, Sangye Jodan Zoge Zonam, Changju Pando Danega. Lagi Sheshe Gibe Zonam, Lola Pinje Sangye Duba. So, so within the Lam-Rim, we have been following with the Lam-Rim by Lama Tsongkhapa, and within that we are in the sections of the great scope, and even within that, then the more detail on the two last perfections, the perfection of Shamatha and wisdom, and within that we are in the perfection of Shamatha, how to develop karma abiding on Shamatha, and within that we have been going through, overcoming the five faults by applying the antidotes as a way of as that method to develop the Shamatha, and the main obstacle to develop faultless concentration or Shamatha is the laxity and distraction or excitement, and within that we went through, identifying the gross level of gross, subtle, and more subtle level of laxity or sinking or excitement and distractions. And we also went through the Lama Tsongkhapa by following the Lam-Rim that how to apply antidotes when we have gross excitement and when we have subtle excitement, when a subtle, more subtle excitement, how to apply, what kind of antidote we need to apply, and how to apply when we have a gross mental sinking or laxity and subtle and more subtle. And also Lama Tsongkhapa also explained the main, so these are the two main obstacles to develop Shamatha. And in terms of the tools, the main tools to develop Shamatha is mindfulness and introspection mind. And also Lama Tsongkhapa also described what the mindfulness mind is, what the introspection mind is, and how to develop the mindfulness and how to develop introspection mind. And by applying those two, then how to overcome the internal obstacles of the mental sinking or laxity and excitement or distractions, and through that how we can develop karma pattern or Shamatha. And so So yeah, so we have been following that, and I think last week or no week before, the last teach, we finished up to where Lama Tsongkhapa described the common cause of the laxity and excitement. I think that is where we are in terms of the
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Remaining without vigilance, page 206.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we went common cause and we didn't go the individual cause. Did we go? I don't think so. 206 page number.
You finished A at the top.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
the common
that's
cause.
the one.
Yeah.
Mm.
So then particular causes for the laxity and the excitement. So here again, one of the causes for laxity is great sleepiness. Maybe, do you understand that? Maybe not. Is the sleepiness the cause for our mental thinking, laxity? When your mind started to become foggy because of sleepiness, unclear, so that, and then when you don't have a, intensity in terms of holding the object or your meditations, if you don't hold it tightly with intensity, then again, that can lead to laxity and mental thinking, So again, that is one of the cause, your mind is holding the object of meditations, but there is no holding it tightly or with the intensity. So that is one. Not balancing shamatha, special insight. I think that probably could means, sometimes we need to not to think and focus on the object, and sometimes we need to do some investigation, analyzing details. That is with special insight, and so sometimes that helps to be mind to be more alert in that, and so I think that because as we mentioned before, when you have that kind of thinking, one way of doing is in terms of Buddha's image, going the details, that can be helpful. So that is like special insight, going more kind of investigating, analyzing, the objects, and that can help us to be less sleepy and more alert, your mind become a little bit, to make your mind a little bit kind of, kind of refresh and through that kind of analyze. But rely on shamatha too much. So that is, I think, what it means. And mind remaining as thought in the darkness, that, no clarity, no clarity of the objects in your meditations, So that is like the darkness. And when you have no clarity, again, then that can lead to thinking and laxity. So that become cause. And not taking joy in direct the mind to objects, again, if you have joyfulness in your meditations towards that objects, then again, you get a little bit more kind of energetic enthusiasms. But when you don't have that joyfulness, then you can easily lose the enthusiasm. And when you lose enthusiasm, then kind of mental thinking and laxity can arise easily. And so those are the cause for the laxity. And so the reason why we have to identify those laxity so that we can deal with those causes. If we reduce those causes, if we overcome those causes, then the chances of laxity arising become less and less, you know. And so that is, so also we talked about the common cause before. And then the cause of excitement here, here it says little disenchantment, you know, to the samsara, you know. When we are too attached to samsara, then that can lead to excitements, distractions, you know. But if we samsara or samsaric experience, you know, but if we have a little bit of disenchantment with samsara and samsaric experience, then we get less distracted towards samsaric experience and samsaric activities. And so then that helps our mind to be less excited, less distracted. So, but when we have we don't have enough disenchantment, then that could be and instead we have attachment, you know, to samsaric pleasures, and that become cause for excitement and distractions. Mind being excessively tied with respect to the objects. Again, if we hold too tightly, you know, then again that can become a cause for excitement and distractions. So again, finding the balance, not too loose, not too tight. If it's too loose, there's danger of laxity, mental sinking. If it's too tight, if we hold too tight, then there's danger of distraction and excitements. And so finding the balance is the key. As Lama Tsongkhapa already mentioned before, you know. If we hold too tightly, then it can be it can lead to excitement and distractions and disturb our concentrations, as well as it can have also effect on our body as well, you know. There's a danger of imbalance of wing, lung, you know, and as well. So I think sometimes we tend to hold too uptight and too tightly, and that can become a problems. So not holding too uptightly, too tight, and the mind being distracted by thought of relative and like, you know, and so, and then, you know, due to attachments, you know, then due to attachment, you know, then the mind being distracted towards, you know, our relative, our families, our friends, and so on, you know. The more attachment, the more distraction we can have, because then we started to unnecessary worry, fears, thoughts, you know, a lot of things. And a lot of those things are, I find, you know, very unnecessary, overly worried, you know. Not just concern. Having a concern is one thing. Having a concern, having a compassion is, but in our cases, it's not just a concern and even a compassion, is overly, unnecessarily overly worried and all of that, and due to attachments, you know, and that can become a distractions, not only shamatha, but in many other ways, and make you more, unhappy, so forth. I think there was not being used to making an effort, you know, so that's one thing. I guess this could mean like this, you know, if you are not used to the practice and the perseverance, effort in general, sometimes we get too excited, Like I see sometimes when people first come to the Dharma, sometimes it connect with them, the teachings. Oh, I feel at home. This is what I've been thinking in my. There is like something they found something special, very special, and they get so excited, and they cannot kind of relax. There's too much excitement, because it is something not familiar, not used to it, and that can be also but if we are used to kind of putting effort and the practice, then we will not be that overly excited, and that will not be distractions. So those are the causes. So here is next one. Lama Tsongkhapa says, we need to have the mindfulness and vigilant, or the introspection mind, throughout the whole practice, from all the time, all the time, all the time, So if you think, I can never overcome the mental thinking or laxity and excitement and distractions from the very beginning, and if you give up, then again, you can never develop faultless concentration or shamatha. Also, if we think, I don't need to apply the mindfulness introspection unless the laxity and excitement are intense, or unless they are frequent all the time. If they are very subtle, and if they are not frequent, maybe I don't need to apply mindfulness and introspections. If we think that, again, that is another mistake in mind. And so here, Lama Tsongkhapa, if we do that, then we will not accomplish the pure faultless concentration, and it is against outside of the very teaching by the Maitreya Buddha to develop the faultless concentrations. So in order to develop faultless concentration, even the laxity and the excitement are not frequent, we still need to apply them. Even they are not intense, even they are very subtle, we need to apply them. And that is one thing I think in our practice. Sometimes when things get better, then we be a little bit kind of careless because things are improving, I think it is same with now, even this pandemic is the same thing. When things started to improve, then people started to not take care of, they started to not wear masks or do things because things are improving, and then things go worse, or not social distancing, for example. Similarly, in meditations, as our meditation get better and better, and then our mental thinking, laxity, distraction become less and less. They are no more intense like they used to be. And they are not frequent as we do. And then we might be careless and we might not apply the mindfulness and introspections. And if we don't apply, then you will not be able to develop that. So that we need to apply the mindfulness or the vigilant or introspection mind all the time, until we develop shamatha, karma abiding, faultless meditative concentration. And so that is what it says. And so then the next one, where in the E, where Lama Tsongkhapa says, we need to alternate two things. One, we try to find, stability. Okay, we need to find the stability in our practice, meditations, in relation to the objects of the meditations. Trying to find the stability. And then trying to develop clarity of the objects. And sometimes we focus on clarity, and then again focus on the stability. And sometimes we focus on the stability, try to practice on that, and then next focus on. So alternately, we need to that. And eventually we have stability and clarity with intensity. That is what we need to develop. And with that kind of stability and clarity with intensity, then we can overcome the laxity and excitement and develop the flawless concentrations. And so that is, so we cannot ignore either of them, the stability and clarity, okay, to develop a pure, flawless concentration or shamatha. Because sometimes some meditator might kind of, might not see the importance of both of them. As long as there's stability, they think that is enough. As long as there is stability, because you don't lose the your object of meditations, and you can focus for a long time without distractions, then you might think that that is enough. Lama Tsongkhapa, that is not enough. You need the stability, but also clarity. And also, Lama Tsongkhapa already mentioned before, not only clarity, but also the intensity as well. And so those are so we have to work on both clarity and stability, both. And if we lack any of those qualities or any of those practice and quality, then we will not be able to develop the shamatha, so that. And so the next one, how to do while free from laxity and excitements, So up to here, Lama Tsongkhapa has explained about what the inner obstacle, what is the laxity or in thinking, and the other obstacle, the excitement and distractions, and then in order to overcome them, then how to identify and develop the mindfulness and introspection mind, and then through that, how to apply the antidotes. Whenever laxity or excitement arises, and thereby overcoming them. Because shamatha is developed by overcoming the obstacles, just like all other realizations. And so we need to overcome that. And but when there is no more arising or inner obstacle or laxity and excitement, then what to do? So when there is no more arising of laxity or excitement, and even at that time, if you try to apply antidote, then that is fault. That becomes obstacle for the development for development of shamatha. And so that time, then we need to develop equanimity, balance, equanimity, and that is the key. It's like when the fire is going up, the fire is going well. If you try to mess up too much, then fire will go out. Do you get it? You just have to leave it. At the very beginning, when fire is not starting, then you need to, put the wood this way, that way, shake it, move it, whatever. But once fire started growing, you shouldn't touch it. If you try to move it, then the fire could go up. Same way, when there's no more arising of laxity and excitement, mental laxity and excitement, then you shouldn't try to disturb that. And you just try to sit in that meditation without putting effort, by trying to apply antidotes, and so that is what it is saying. So it says, in this stage, at that stage, it would be a mistake to be aware of laxity and excitement very much as in the beginning. So at the very beginning, we need to have a strong, with a strong mindfulness and introspection, we keep to be very alert and watchful all the time with the introspection. But as your meditation get, then you don't need to use so much of that introspection mind, watching whether my mind is on the object or not, or that, or whether excitement is arising, alert. If you do that, then it becomes a disturbance for your meditations. So then you don't require that so much at that point. What you need is more kind of equanimity, just being in that state, without requiring of that so much, So it says if you do that, your mind will be more distracted, and so you need to know how to loosen up. And here he said that is to say loosen the endeavor or the effort rather than letting go of intensity of your moral apprehensions. So in terms of intensity of holding your object, you don't let go of that intensity. Otherwise, you will not develop the shamatha, because not only we need the intensity, but what you let go is this kind of being putting too much effort and trying to apply the antidotes, and so that is, so that one comes to the eight antidotes, not applying the antidotes and instead being applying the equanimities, and that is. So then here, I don't know whether equanimities. So again, here is saying equanimity is not apply, from the very beginning, for the example, at the very beginning of our meditations, sometimes there can be a time when there is no, let's say even at the 9 stages, even the first stage, second, third, fourth stages, still there are times when laxity or excitement not arising, okay? Few moments sometime, maybe it could be a few seconds, it could be a few minutes. For some, maybe 1 minute, for 10, maybe 5 minutes, maybe either laxity or excitement might not arises. But at the same time, at that time, you still need to put effort. It's not time to apply the equanimity at that time. You still need the effort. And so this is then pass when you reach like the 8 stages, you know, then after the 8 stages, then there is no dangers of laxity and excitement arising. You have overcome it, and you have overcome the peak of laxity, and that in that time, then that is where you apply equanimity. And so that is what it is saying, because here when we say applying equanimity, you try to have a less effort, and trying to apply antidotes. And that kind of equanimity, when you apply, is that later stages when you're, so that is, I think, that is a way of making the point, you know. Because if we started to do that from the very beginning, then again, we will not be able to develop a strong mindfulness and strong introspections. And we will not be able to complete the power of mindfulness introspections, which we need very strong tools of that, and also effort. So that is where it is. So then equanimity, you know, there are 3 types of equanimity, so I don't need to kind of go into that. And so here equanimity is in terms of the applications, you know. And so what it means is, as it is said in Savaka levels, in that it means, you know, it is the mind resting even, you know, and at ease upon its objects. From the class of Shamatha, a special insight, operating naturally, achieving suppleness. So, and so Lama Tsongkhapa said, once we have achieved such equanimity, then you should be able to, you know, develop or actualize the Shamatha. And without putting strong effort or endeavor, as long as laxity and excitement do not arise. So that is the equanimity. So practicing equanimity and not applying the antidote when it is not needed. We try to apply the antidote whenever the obstacles, the laxity or excitement arises. And when it doesn't arise, then we need to practice the equanimity. And so that is where so I think we kind of already went through, you know, a little bit of that so far, you know. So this is next one is just kind of summarizing the 5 faults and the 8 antidotes, you know. So by applying the 8 antidotes towards the 5 faults and how to develop the shamatha, and just to summarize the 5 faults, you know, before you know, the actual practice, you know, the laziness is the 1 fault. And actually when you are engaged in the practice, the meditation itself, forgetting the instruction or object is the obstacles. And even when we don't forget the instruction or object, when there is arising of laxity or excitement, any of them is a fault. And when any of those obstacles arise, not applying antidote is a fault. And when there is no more arising of that obstacles, the laxity and excitement, applying antidotes is the fault. So these are the 5 faults to develop the faultless concentration shamatha. So how to apply the antidote as of antidote towards those 5 faults. So the first 4 antidote factors are an antidote towards the laziness. And that we already said before, plenty. When you have plenties, when your mind is very flexible and light, plenty, then of course you wouldn't have a laziness, because your mind is so flexible, so light, And in order that plenty, you need to have a concentration, effort. That is the other one. In order to have the effort, you need to have the inspirations. If you have inspiration, then effort will come easily. If you don't have inspirations, then you wouldn't have the enthusiasm or the joyfulness in your practice. But when there's a strong inspirations, then that will come. In order to have strong inspiration, then you need to have the faith in the practice, in here Shamatha, by understanding and by recognizing all the benefit of the Shamatha, But the more you understand the benefit of the Shamatha, the karma abiding, the more you have the faith or liking towards that practice. When you have more liking towards that practice, then that will give you inspiration to develop that. And with the inspiration, then it will give you enthusiasm. Through the joyful enthusiasm, then it will give you a plenty, and that will act as the antidote towards the laziness. And that those act as a 4 act as a antidote towards the laziness, the first fault. And the second, mindfulness. I think mindfulness is the antidote towards the forgetting the instructions and the objects. And then introspections is the so that is the 5th one in terms of the 8 factors. Introspections is the antidote towards the the laxity and excitement. So even though the introspection is not direct antidotes, in some cases it can be antidote, but it is not always the right direct antidote all the time, but it is that which will be able to identify immediately whenever we have any of those obstacles, and that allow us to apply whatever antidote is needed. And so therefore that, and then not applying so then applying the antidote is applying whenever laxity or excitement arises through the mindfulness introspections, especially introspection, we identify them, we recognize them immediately, and we try to apply whatever antidote is needed. So applying the antidote, is the antidote towards the non-applying the antidotes. And then practicing the equanimity, the 8th one, is the antidote towards overly applying the antidote when it is not needed. So I think that is more or less and then Lama Tsongkhapa says, the need to develop such a shamatha or karma abiding through the tools of mindfulness and introspection mind by overcoming the laxity and excitement is common and needed for both sutra and tantric practice. And so therefore, you cannot ignore saying, oh, it is needed for the sutra, but it's not necessary for the tantra, you know. So even in tantric practice, I mean, most of the tantric teachings, they don't give a detailed explanations of how to develop shamatha, even though, like in generation stage, you are supposed to concentrate on yourself as a deity, focus on deity, or sometimes on syllables, letters. But then they don't talk about all the details about the laxity and excitement and mindfulness, introspection, all of that, because those are the foundational practice that you needed to do that, you know. So even someone who want to engage in the tantric practice as a generation stages, you need those teachings and this practice as a foundations, necessary. Otherwise, your generation stages will not be very powerful. And if you don't have a strong practice of generation, your completion stage of tantric wouldn't have any effect. So in order to have a profound effect of your completion stage, you need to have a good, profound practice of generation stage. In order to have a strong generation stage practice of that, you need this same shamatha that is taught here in the sutras. So therefore, developing such a shamatha based on such method that is presented by Maitreya and Asanga through their teachings, and Kamala Shila and all those great Indian masters, is necessary, and you cannot ignore that. And so that is so it is also taught in many High Yoga Tantra. Yeah, like in Yoga Tantra, they talk about the need to develop, but it doesn't explain such details because all is explained in sutras, you know. And so the next one is the 9 stages. The 9 stages of the 9 stages to develop the shamatha. Okay. So again, those 9 stages of gradual progress, or your meditative stages, your mind, you know. So with that, you know, so we talk about the 5 faults, how to apply, identifying the 5 faults, overcoming 5 faults by 8 factors. And now in terms of the actual meditation, the 9 stages, and with that, then we know, if we know that, then we know which stages we are. We can be able to identify ourselves as we learn more about which stages that we are. And so those, the 9 stages. So first, you know, here is, I say, 9 points, but I think in general, I think that it will be better 9 stages of meditations, you know. That is how mostly it is presented. When you say points, it seems to me, I don't know, because English, but it seems to give different meaning than the 9 stages of meditations, you know. So the first stage is placing the mind, you know, setting the mind, placing the mind, you know, towards the object of your meditations, the image or object of your meditation, whether it is an internal object such as your nature or your mind, or external objects such as breath, Buddha's image, whatever, you know. basically is placing or setting your mind or fixing your mind towards the objects. Okay. So it's directing, focusing, fixing, placing, setting your mind towards the objects. So that is the first stage. So in the first stage, you know, we lose the object and we seek the object. Again, we lose the object and then again we seek the objects, and that is the first stage. In the first stage, it's kind of finding the objects, but you will lose objects. Again, you come back and find the objects. Again, you lose object, and so that is first stages, you know, trying to so and it says, you know, some commentaries, in the first stage, you lose more than you are able to hold on the objects. Okay. First stage, you are able to hold the object 1 second and you lose 2 seconds before you recognize, or maybe 10 seconds or 1 minute, you lose. Your mind is somewhere else before you find out, oh, you have lost the object of meditation, and again come back and find the objects. Again, try to redirect, refocus, reset, replace on that. And so that is the first stages. And so it is also explained in first stages for meditators, beginning meditators who are seriously trying to develop focus on meditations. They might find as they might feel and find as though there is more thoughts than no. It feels like they, oh, by meditating, they are increasing more thoughts. Instead of loosening more thought, it feels like you are increasing the thought. That is how practitioners in the first stage, they feel like, oh, I should be instead of decreasing the thought, which I should be, but they feel, oh, my thoughts are increasing. And here the point is not it is increasing, but now you are being identifying. Normally, all these emotions, all these different thoughts are there, but we are not aware of it. It's not that those thoughts are not there all the time. The thoughts are there all the time. So it hasn't increased. Even though we feel like it has increased, because now we are recognizing them. Before, we don't pay attention. Before, we don't pay attention to our thoughts, our mind, because before we are constantly running after senses all the time. You know, we are always running with the senses. You know, our mind always run after what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. And so our mind is always distracted, following those senses. And even though so many different emotions, different thoughts, different mind are going each moment, each second, waves and chains of thoughts, we are not aware of that. Now, when we are trying to meditate and concentrate single pointedly to one object, whatever that object is, when you are trying to focus single pointedly towards want that object of your meditation image, now you are starting to be aware of all other thoughts, the chains of thoughts, emotions, feelings, mind. So it's a good, now you are being more, it's not a bad sign, it's a good sign. We should be happy. Now we are starting to recognize. Now we are not trying to, we are able to recognize, we are able to, even though we cannot overcome them, at least we are able to identify them, we are able to recognize them. That is a progress. And we should rejoice in that, you know. So in some scripture, they give example that you will have a feeling like there is a waterfall of those thoughts, you know, kind of endless, like kind of, yeah. So that is first stages. The second, continuous placement, you know. So this one is trying to increase duration of your meditations, focusing single pointly without distractions. So from 1 second to 2 seconds, 2 seconds to 4 seconds, 4 seconds to 8 seconds, 8 seconds to, you know, 15, 20, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So that is trying to continue to keep your mind focused on the object for longer duration without being distracted. You know, before, if you are able to get distracted, you know, and you lose object within 1 minute, within a few seconds, now you are able to keep it more longer duration without losing the object, without being distracted. And some, you know, there is no clear explanations in any scriptures or commentary that I see what duration exactly when you are in that stage. In some teachers, you know, I said when you are able to recite in the duration of 1 mala Om Mani Padme Hum. And again, you know, if you are reciting very quickly, that can be how many seconds, you know, minutes. If you are reciting very slowly, maybe it might, in some commentary, I've seen like 5 minutes when you are able to focus without any distractions for 5 minutes, then it's like in the second stages. But there doesn't seems to be exactly in terms of how long durations when you are able to focus or or keep your mind on the object without distractions, and which is on your second stages, you know. So maybe if you are doing maybe Om Mani Padme Hum very slowly, maybe 5 minutes, I don't know, you know. But definitely, I think it was Chöndrön Rinpoche, I think in his explanation, I think he explained about the durations of 1 mala of Om Mani Padme Hum. But in some other teachers I've seen saying 5 minutes, you know. So maybe some of you are above the second stages. I'm not. I think I'm still in the first stages. And it is said, you know, in the second stages, and you can have this kind of feeling of all these thoughts, feelings, emotions, as being kind of, um, relaxing, So it comes and comes and comes and goes. In the first stages, it's like a waterfall. Do you get it? Those different thoughts, feeling, emotions is so much. It's like pouring so much. Now it's not like pouring so much that way, So it comes and goes, comes and goes. Some thoughts comes, again it goes, comes, and for a certain period it comes and it goes and comes, and something being very kind of relaxed, not so active, And sometimes it comes, it lasts longer, and sometimes it comes, it lasts less. And sometimes it comes more frequently, sometimes it comes less frequently, so it changes. The thoughts are still there, different thoughts, emotions, feelings, minds, but not as lasting long as the previous stage, not as frequent as the previous stages. So that is where direct mind is continuously placed on the object over a period of time without being distracted to anything else. So that is where period of time, what exactly that period of time, durations, that is where, as I mentioned, not so clarity, different commentaries types. Then the third one, language of, sometimes it is called replacing, resetting, here patchy placement. So then, if you get distracted due to forgetfulness, so that you are distracted to external things, you realize it and tie your mind to the object again. The patches means, when you have worn out clothes, then you patch it, and similarly, so again, your meditations, durations increase without distracted from the second stages, But still, sometimes you lose your objects. Still, sometimes you get distracted and still you lose your objects, Relatively compared to the second stage, you lose less. But still, you can still lose the objects. And when you lose the objects, then you bring back it. You recognize through your practice of mindfulness and introspections, especially the mindfulness at these stages, you recognize that your mind has been distracted, your mind has been losing the object, and you quickly bring back to it. So again, here, you are able to stay more in the meditation than losing more. Do you get it? In the first And second stage is you lose more than you are able to stay in the objects. Second stage is improvement from the first stages, but still you are losing more than to be able to stay there, you know. But in third stages, you are able to focus more. You still lose some time, but you know, you are able to stay on the object without losing the object, without getting distracted, more than actually getting distracted, more than losing object and more than getting more distracted. So since, you know, so if you have not lose your objects, you know, due to distraction, you still try to bring your mindfulness strongly and try to hold it very tightly, strongly to the objects. So it is like kind of patching in a way that your mind is already to the object. You haven't lost the object, but you bring more stronger mindfulness to hold it more intensity with more alertness, more tightly. And so it's almost like kind of patching it, you know. Of course, if you lose the object, then you bring back your mind from being distracted and losing object back to the objects and then to the patch. And in a way, it can be also a patchy placement or replacing, because the object is always there. You can always come back to the object. Always come back. Whether it's an image, whether it's a breath, it doesn't go away, it is there. Your mind has gone somewhere else, but object is there. Your mind has been scattered, wandered off, distracted, but object is still there, you can always come back to there. So that is good, again, another, to remember that the object is there, you can always come back to the object. It's not like you have to develop the object from the very beginning again. Object has been lost, you know. Your mind had been distracted and wandered off from the object, but the object is there. So you just have to come back to the object, or you just have to bring back your mind to the object. And so that patches, you know. So as your stages get, as your mindfulness become more stronger, your mindfulness become more stronger with the first, second, and third stage. As you go through those different stages, your practice of mindfulness become more stronger and stronger, more powerful and powerful. And because of that power, the mindfulness, even though we do get sometimes distracted in that stages, but when you get distracted, you are able to recognize quickly, more quickly. And so when you are able to recognize more quickly, once you recognize that, identify that, immediately try to bring back to the objects. So now you are able to identify it more quickly. So then that is why you are able to focus more on object than being distracted. Before, we get distracted for a long time without recognizing it, and more frequently without recognizing it. So distractions is more than being able to stay on the object. Now you are able to stay more on the object. And even when you get distracted, you are able to identify quickly, more quickly. And you are able to do that because your mindfulness, the practice of your mindfulness have increased, become more powerful, more stronger. And with that, so here, realizing distraction quickly, you should patch it up again. So meaning when you get distracted, being able to recognize quickly and quickly bring back to the objects. and then keep your mind to the object, whatever object it is. Then the 8, close placement, is explained as following the instruction of perfect wisdom. The mind, while intensive by the nature, of course, the nature of the mind is very, very intensive, expanding, is collected again and again, thus refined. So placement get better and better. And this accord with the statements. So as you come to that, as your mindfulness get more stronger and more completed, your mind started to withdraw more. And so when your mind started to withdraw more, there's a danger of laxity or mental sinking or mental laxity, Oh yeah, in the third one, in some scripture, they explain you have as the thoughts and feeling, emotions being kind of exhausted, meaning they are not so active. It is there, but it is not as active. Exhausted, when someone is exhausted. It's slightly different. The second one, when you're relaxing, you can be active and you relax active, but exhausted is kind of less active, kind of more kind of there, even though it's there, but kind of less active in that way, so that is the close place, so that is the third one, the passive placement, the exhausted, you could have an experience and feeling of those thoughts, emotions, feelings, and mind. They are there, but they are kind of less active and more like a kind of exhausted, So through the power, as in the 4 stages, your power of your mindfulness increases even more, become more powerful, more strong. Through that, you are able to bring your mind, able to keep your mind to the objects without wandering off, without being excited, distracted. And so in that way, your mind will become a little kind of withdrawn, and with that, there is more stability, more stability. Because your mind is less wandering off, less distracting, less exciting. Your mind is able to keep on object more without losing more, without losing it. And so your mind is kind of withdrawn towards the objects, from the external things to the internal objects. And then when that happens, there is even though there is stability, there is a danger of laxity, because your mind, when it's withdrawn in that way, then there is a danger of the laxity or sinking, So you have to pay more attention to that. So one has to pay more attention to the laxity, the sinking. singing, not singing song, you know, sinking, sinking down. So when you come to the fourth stage, we have to pay more attention to that, the internal obstacle of the laxity or sinking. More to that, because there is more danger of that now. There's more danger of that than the distractions, the excitement, the wandering off. There were more danger there in the first stage, second stage, third stage. Especially the first stages, as we say, it is always mostly that. You know, mostly our mind wandering off, distracted. There is no stability, you know. Second, there is a little bit more stability, more longer durations. Third stages, more. And the fourth, now there is more stability. And it is said in some commentaries, from the fourth stage, you don't lose the objects. So you don't lose the object from the fourth stage. Until the fourth stage, until third stage, you could still lose the objects by distractions. When you reach the fourth stage, then from there, you don't lose the objects, they say, you know. And so, and your power, as mentioned, mindfulness is strong, so you don't lose the objects, but there's a danger of sinking. So therefore, we have to be more alert, more attentive, and pay more attention to that. So here, the intelligent people should more and more collect their mind internally. You know, in the fourth place, that is where you try to place your mind internally to the objects. Those who want to develop the shamatha, you know, those intelligent who want to develop shamatha, you should not allow it distracted. And from that stages, then you will not. But there is danger of that taming. Having reflected on the excellent quality of concentrations, you rejoice in it. You know. So when there's a danger of mental sinking or laxity because of being withdrawn your mind too much, then you need to uplift your mind. Give a little bit excitement. Not too much excitement, then otherwise, again, it becomes distractions. But a little bit of kind of excitement, little bit, not the same excitement that we're talking from the obstacle point of view, where your mind is wandering off, you know, where your mind is wandering off and distracted, but a little bit of uplifting your mind. You need to uplift a little bit, because if you don't uplift your mind a little bit and little excitement, then there is danger of that sinking, laxity. And so that is where here, you know, taming is that. And the way to do is then, you know, at the very beginning of your meditations, before you actually go into the actual meditation on the shamatha itself, you know, the actual, just before you actually go into the actual object of your meditation, whether it is Buddha's image or your nature or mind, or whether it is the breath, whatever you use it, before you actually go in that meditation, that object, you try to reflect on excellent quality of concentrations, you know. The more you reflect on that, the more you feel incredible qualities of having developed shamatha or faultless concentration or karma abiding, you know, how it can improve your meditations. Not only just in shamatha, how it can improve your meditation bodhicitta, how it can improve your meditation on tantric practice if you are doing that, how it can help us to develop the wisdom, the special insight, how through that shamatha, how we can develop how to develop such as clairvoyance so that we can help and benefit others more, and so forth. So the more you reflect on all these advantage, incredible positive qualities of the shamatha or concentrations, the more your mind get uplifted, the more you have enthusiasm, you know, and so that is why you rejoice in it, you know. So that is why it gives you kind of feeling good about it, you know, feeling good about it, having a joy in that practice, joyness in the meditations. So there is a joyfulness, uplifting, enthusiasm, and then with that kind of enthusiasm, with that kind of uplifting mind, with that kind of joyfulness mind, then you do the meditations. Then there is less danger of going in the laxity and sinking, because your mind has been kind of uplifted. So here again, yeah, so that is, so here now you need to develop more stronger vigilant or introspection mind. Then since you see the excellent qualities, so that is where, so we need to develop now a stronger vigilant and or introspection mind here. So again, yeah, then since you see excellent qualities, the mind is tame in concentrations. So then your mind of being under the influence or being under the control of you know, gross laxity or sinking is kind of tame, you know, in this in these stages, you know, through that. And so, yeah, I think so. We will kind of we will stop here today, and maybe next time when you next week, maybe you all will be in the 5th stage, I guess. So yeah, and then we'll do the dedications. Due to the merit of these virtues, actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. Changju Sen Jorin Boche Ma Ke Pa Na Ke Kyu Che Kya Wa Nyam Ba Me Ba Ya Kong Le Kong Du Pe Wa Sho. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Pinjin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. To Zhang Xin Zhang Gun Jiawe, Dan Zin Zhong Pe Wei Hun So Do Bo Zhi, Xiao Song Gu Wei Le Mo Tu Du, Ba Da So Du Che Gun Du Xiao Te. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.